So I've learned from bitter experience that you should write these presentations out. So I'm going to read off a pre-prepared. Okay. So I'm going to look at Kashmir through the lens of international politics and consider the role of China in particular, whose approach to this issue has shifted in interesting ways over time. Beijing is a key actor in Kashmir as it's a party to the dispute, controlling land claimed by India in Ladakh, along with a portion of strategically important territory that Pakistan ceded in 1963. But its role is often overshadowed by those of Pakistan and India. China is seen as a supporter of Pakistan on Kashmir, but the reality is rather more complex. While it's true that China adopted a partisan and confrontational approach in the Mao era, it's gradually become more pragmatic and even-handed. Far from stoking a conflict in Kashmir by siding with Islamabad against New Delhi, Beijing has increasingly prioritized regional stability, which is key to its overriding foreign policy goal of economic growth. In the Cold War, China was clearly on Pakistan's side. The Sino-Indian relationship soured when the Dalai Lama sought refuge in North India. Then came the 1962 Sino-Indian War, when China seized Aksai Chin in the Ladakh district of Kashmir. In the 1965 Indo-Pakistan War, Beijing firmly backed Islamabad, but things changed in the mid-1990s. With the Cold War over, India's alliance with the Soviet Union ended. The USSR had been an adversary of China's, and its disappearance opened up the possibility for improved Sino-Indian ties. China's relations with the US had declined following the Tiananmen Square controversy. Beijing now saw India as a possible partner to counter Washington. President Jiang Zemin visited India in 1996, the first ever visit by a Chinese head of state there. On a follow-up trip to Pakistan, Zemin shocked his hosts by suggesting the Kashmir dispute should be addressed through bilateral negotiations, undermining Pakistani attempts to internationalize the issue. Once firmly in Pakistan's camp, China would now try to balance more between Islamabad and Delhi. The 1998 nuclear tests by India and Pakistan made China more cautious in its handling of the issue. When Pakistan infiltrated troops over the line of control in 1999, precipitating what's known as the Kargil conflict, Beijing did not offer support, but joined the US in urging restraint. China again collaborated with the US to resolve the Twin Peaks crisis in 2001-2, when India and Pakistan mobilized huge numbers of troops on their border after a terrorist attack on the Indian parliament. China's partnership with Pakistan is old and deep, with a security relationship going back decades that is now as strong as ever. Beijing has also given Pakistan diplomatic support at the UN and other international forums. But it does not blindly and routinely protect Islamabad. After the Mumbai attacks in 2008, it did not block UN sanctions against Jamaat-ud-Dawa, a group commonly associated with Pakistan. In 2018, China acquiesced in the grey listing of Pakistan by the Financial Action Task Force, although it recently lobbied against Islamabad's blacklisting by that organization. In the meantime, China and India agreed to reset their relations after a dangerous border standoff at Doklam in 2017 raised alarm bells. A summit at Wuhan between President Xi and Prime Minister Modi in 2018 was followed by another in Chennai this year. After the Pulwama attack in February, China came under huge international pressure to allow the UN listing of Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar. Despite initially blocking the move, it finally agreed, albeit with some changes to the wording of the resolution. Beijing seems to have adopted a more pro-Pakistani line in the current crisis, issuing a number of very strong statements. After years of declining Chinese interest in internationalizing the Kashmir dispute, it requested a closed-door session of the UN Security Council, the first such meeting in decades. But China is acting in its own interest, as India's move impinges on its sovereignty. Beijing is also concerned about the China-Pakistan economic corridor that runs through Pakistani Kashmir. However, there is relatively little CPEC activity in Gilgit in Pakistan, and even if there was, India's revocation of Article 370 does not change much on the ground there. Indeed, Beijing's response to India's move has been quite mild, consisting of little more than strong words. By contrast, Pakistan has downgraded diplomatic ties with India and suspended trade. China might be pulling its punches on Kashmir because it wants to avoid reciprocal criticism of its policies in Hong Kong and Xinjiang. India has so far been quiet about those issues, not signing a recent joint statement about Xinjiang at the UN, for example. It's true, however, that Beijing is more involved in the Kashmir issue than it has been for some time. As China's economic interests have expanded, its security and diplomatic role in the region has also increased. In Afghanistan, for example, China has been assisting the peace process, hosting members of the Taliban in Beijing and collaborating with the US, Russia, and other countries. It also has a security presence in Badakhshan on the Chinese border. Beijing's influence over Pakistan makes it an important diplomatic player in Kashmir. It also has significant economic leverage over India by virtue of the huge trade deficit the two countries run, not to mention its military superiority. The US used to be an effective crisis manager in South Asia. In both the Kargil and Twin Peaks crises, it was central to reducing tensions. But since then, America has grown much closer to India, while its relations with Pakistan have soured. Neither America nor Britain have shown much willingness to intervene in the latest crisis, and Washington's diplomatic capability is degraded, with key positions unfilled, such as US ambassador to Pakistan. For now, China is perceived as being too close to Pakistan to play a major role mediating between Islamabad and New Delhi. Moreover, its territorial claims in Kashmir make it a party to the dispute. But if China and India eventually resolve their border issues and relations improve, as both governments clearly hope, Beijing may come to be seen as a more neutral diplomatic force capable of facilitating negotiations. This is, of course, a long way off. But whatever India might say, the Kashmir dispute will surely never be resolved without at least some external mediation. With the US in retreat, other countries must now step up to the plate. Thank you.